my name is Naomi Velasquez. I live in Pocatello, Idaho. My background is in art and quilting. I started quilting in the 90s after I finished my undergraduate degree in interior design. I did nonprofit work for about a decade, and then I went back to get my Master's of Fine Arts in Art and Fibers, and I've been teaching as a professor in Idaho ever since. So I teach foundations courses, fiber media, paper making, book arts, all things that inform the work that I make. Blood Knot is part of a series about relationships of three-dimensional quilt reconstructions. So when I make a piece in this series, I'm inspired by something having to do with relationships. In this case, it was a particular diagram, a drawing from a textbook about a knot called the blood knot. I'm interested in what happens when two things intertwine, whether it's colors, textures, in this case, the idea of connecting yourself to someone else. And so the blood knot is a very strong knot, thinking about whether relationships are stronger together and how you integrate with a relationship in your life. So this one I started with a diagram. For these pieces, my process includes dyeing the cotton batting for the interiors of the quilts. So for example, I use Kona cotton, black fabric, commercial cotton fabric, and then I dye the interior batting that goes inside the quilts. For this quilt, I used 2 different layers, and I explored like 12 colors of pinks and oranges, trying to get the right image that I was trying to portray. So here's a sample that I made of some of those batting attempts. These might look similar to you. To me, the exploration was important to find the right colors that would pop off of each other. So in this one, you can see they're kind of dramatic. There's a light and a dark. So once I have dyed the batting, I sew large sheets of quilts with my domestic machine that my grandmother used. And then after I quilt them, then I cut them into lots of tiny pieces that are then adhered to the surface of the background quilt with a combination of fabric, paint, and matte medium. And also an archival acid-free glue. So I cut them all into little individual pieces as I go and glue them with a paintbrush. And so that's the construction method that I use. And interesting about this piece is I almost ran out of materials for this quilt. This is the entire amount of materials that I had left when I was done. I was terrified because if you've ever dyed anything, you know that no matter how many good notes I take and how much I measure, the day and the materials and the cotton batting, everything's going to affect how that dye adheres. And so I was never going to be able to actually get an exact match back to the original dye lot. So even though I overestimated, I ended up the shortest I've literally ever been on a piece, coming down to the very edge, wondering if I was going to have to cut the piece off to actually be able to finish it. I'm interested in relationships from all sorts of perspectives. I also am working on a series of artist books. I also work in paper making because I teach it, and so then I'm inspired to make letterpress prints and other things, and not just quilts. But certainly my love of quilting is foundational to me, and even when I'm working on things in paper, I'm often thinking of stitch marks and other types of imagery and mark making, because textiles are part of my family history and background, and I love the idea of a piece of cloth that has texture, sometimes color, sometimes surface design, instead of a blank canvas. So I love putting together those types of materials to put together a piece. I'm also interested in this specific piece in Blood Knot, in how it looks in different lights, how it looks when you move around the piece. So I think it's really great to see it in person, because as you travel across the piece, to me it's a metaphor for life and how things change in a moment. So as you're walking across a piece, you're going to experience different moments just as you move around the three-dimensional piece.